Okay, so you're looking to move to Orlando, Florida, and you're looking to hit all the information you can possibly get. Well, in this video, I'm gonna talk about everything you need to know when it comes to moving to Orlando, Florida. I'm gonna be covering the pros and cons, the current cost of living, rent, housing, toll roads, everything's gonna be included in that. I'm gonna be giving you my top 5 communities that everyone who has reached out to me on this channel has asked about and the details on each specific one. I'm gonna be pulling up the map on my computer to show you around Orlando where the hot spots are for traffic, where everyone's moving to, and maybe you want to avoid if you're trying to get rid of a lot of the craziness, where the new construction is, all of that and everything in between. We're gonna get into it right now. All right, what's up everyone? My name is Cameron Hans. Welcome back to the channel. And obviously on this video, we're gonna be talking about 5 pros and 5 cons to get this started. So when it comes to living in Orlando, there's a lot of good things and bad things. And now keep in mind, these pros and cons for this first part of the video are just gonna be generalized pros and cons that I have found since me and my family moved to Orlando. And obviously they might not resonate with you. Maybe there are different cons that you can find and vice versa. So take this with a grain of salt. But getting into it, we're gonna talk about the pros first. So the first pro I find when it comes to Orlando is the ability to travel at a more affordable price. Now, this is subjective. So when I was in the Marine Corps, I was stationed in Southern California, and then I grew up about an hour and a half east of Buffalo in New York State before going into that. And both times, both those airports never really had the best deals for where I was trying to travel to. And what I've found living here in Orlando is that since moving here and actually looking at airport deals, there's actually a lot. Now, does that mean that it's really cheap? No, everything's expensive nowadays, right? But what I enjoy is the fact that it doesn't cost me like $1,000 round trip for like one ticket. Yeah, that's a real price I would have to pay going home on leave in the military to Buffalo, New York. And I can tell you, Orlando has a lot of cool deals. And the cool thing is even like, I've even seen random deals where like going to like Iceland for like a couple $100 per round trip a ticket or something like that. Crazy, right? Like just crazy, but it's because it's such a vacation hub. All the airlines come to Orlando. Now I will tell you, depending on what West Coast airport you're going to, if you're looking for non-stop flight, options get a little bit limited. So when you're starting to travel across the country, I definitely have noticed that non-stop flights are limited. But the cool thing is like I tell a lot of my clients that move here, no matter where you're going to, if you're going to Europe, Canada, East Coast, middle breadbasket of the country, you're heading to the West Coast, there are flights that can get you to those main cities and those main hubs to Orlando because everyone comes here. And it's one of the great blessings I've found when it comes to living here and being able to have family come visit us and vice versa, visiting family. All right, the second thing is the things to do. Obviously, everyone knows there's a lot of theme parks and Universal, SeaWorld, Disney World, Legoland, they're all here in the greater Orlando area. And if you head towards Tampa, you can always have Busch Gardens. So there's a lot of cool things going on in Central Florida and Orlando when it comes to theme parks. That's not what I'm talking about. Everyone knows that. What I've found is that there's a lot of random things to do. So one of the cool things is we choose to homeschool our kids, right? Which, whatever. But there's a huge community here. And what it caused me to run down this rabbit hole is I've started to realize that whether you are into homeschooling, or you're into sports, or some other kind of community. I don't know, maybe California was a little bit different for me. Maybe I just wasn't open to it because I just despise living there. I don't know. But I can tell you that there are so many groups here, so many activities going on. I mean, our son is in soccer. We just went on a hike last week with this huge group of people it was fun. It was awesome. We got to learn about nature. We had a guide from the state park on Lake Louisa. And there's a lot of cool things going on in the area. And there's also like other activities. So there's like a dinosaur park when you head towards Plant City, which is heading towards Tampa from Orlando, so you're heading west on the 4. You also have this awesome, cool little nature reserve area. Obviously it's Florida, so a lot of people have like exotic animals and they don't know how to take care of them. They get rid of them, whatever happens. And this place picks them up and rehabs them. Some can go back in the wild, a lot of them can't. And it's really not that expensive. That's heading east out of Orlando. I can never think about it. I know I've talked about it in past videos, but you can look it up. A lot of cool places around Orlando that have free or cheap things to do aside from the theme parks. Now, the one caveat is obviously if you're into basketball, we got basketball. That's great. Orlando Magic, that's awesome. I'm not into basketball. You see me? I did not grow up with any basketball team in my area. I was into football and hockey. The cool thing is Tampa's not that far. And roughly speaking, if you're only going for one game a year or so to get it out of your system, maybe there's a little bit more. It's not that far of a drive. You can spend the night or whatever in Tampa. I do that all the time. I love it. I'm looking forward to doing it more. Sorry, I want to do it all the time. It's not really in the budget, but I want to do it more because this is a fun thing. Also, another thing when it comes to things to do, if you're into beaches, obviously there's no beaches in Orlando. You got some lakes, that's fun. But for those of you that like the coast, you're either heading to Daytona or Melbourne, or you're heading all the way to Tampa. We prefer Tampa, but hey, keep in mind that can be a negative too, but we're still talking about the pros. There's a lot of stuff to do around Orlando. Let's get to the next one. All right, pro number 3 is the weather. Yes, you're getting a foreshadowing event for what one of the cons can be, but hear me out. A lot of people do not like the weather in Florida and Orlando. Hold on. Obviously, you're looking at coming here. So clearly you have some interest in moving to Orlando, and the weather doesn't bother you all that much. Well, I can tell you, it doesn't bother me that much either. I'll be honest with you, the summers are brutal and hot. Yes, you heard that right. I mean, it is. Sorry. It stinks. We usually spend that time to either go somewhere that's a little bit nicer up north, or we're heading back to California for a little bit to visit my wife's family. So look, it is what it is. The weathers are brutal and it's muggy and it's hot. But look, even right now, we've had some 87-degree days. I think I caught 92 randomly spiked in this last week coming into spring here, but we're cooling off heading today, tomorrow back into the 70s. You know, I love most of the year, the weather is awesome. And during the winter, when you're waking up on that January morning and it's cool outside and you know the day's gonna be in the high 60s, 74, I mean, it's bliss. So most of the year, the weather is awesome. But man, yes, when it hits that summertime, it is miserable as heck. So you have to be prepared for that. But most of the year, it's awesome. And when it comes to Florida, you have different climates in Florida. Like Miami is not the climate that we have here in Orlando. Now we're not too far off, but we're pretty darn close. So we don't have the weather Miami has. It's definitely hotter down there. It's different compared to Orlando and Central Florida, just like we're different compared to like Jacksonville, Tallahassee. But the cool thing about Central Florida, most of the year the weather's gorgeous. Yes, we have rain. I like rain. I like a good thunderstorm. It doesn't bother me, but for some people that might bother you. Keep in mind, we're actually not that far off when it comes to California when it's sunny days. I think we're only like, roughly 20 days short a year. Well, not even. I think we're like 15 less days of sun per year. It's crazy. We're actually not that far off. Fun fact for you. All right, and number 4, kind of already talked about this already, but I'm gonna harp on it again, is the communities. So there's a lot of cool communities around Orlando. Now, this doesn't just mean, obviously, housing communities where you have cool people, even though I will be honest with you, everywhere we've lived, I have had awesome neighbors. There are bad ones. There's always the bad eggs. Everywhere you go, you gotta have the people that just ruin it for everyone. But it's human life. Right? Like no matter what you do, your kids do, I promise you there are awesome communities in Orlando. What I see a lot of people make mistakes on when they come to Orlando and they say they had a bad experience is I'm like, great, did you go out and meet people and do things? Trust me, I like staying at home and doing nothing too. But the reality is, there are amazing communities out here. Heck, I didn't start going heavier into church and getting back into that because I didn't have a good community for years. And since coming here, we met an amazing family. They're already part of a community down here, and I'm ecstatic. We've been going every weekend, and I can tell you that those communities are here. Those people here, they exist. I've gotten free massive dining tables that I just ended up giving away because it was too big, but I've gotten free furniture from people around the Orlando area, and I can tell you there's just amazing people and communities here. You just gotta find it. If you come here looking for a bad time, guess what you're gonna find? You're gonna have a bad time. Also, that's why, this is a good time to stop real quick, is why if you're looking to relocate to the Orlando area, you can reach out to me and my team. It'll go to me, we can call, text, email, this number's down below, it does not matter, but we specialize in helping people as real estate professionals in relocation to the Orlando, Florida area. So that's you're looking to get assistance to create the right plan, to find the home to purchase. Even if you have a home to sell, it doesn't matter. We're here to help you in that process. We've been in the military, I've traveled more times than I've wanted to. The cool thing is it gave me skills and abilities to really focus on relocation and help people like yourself when it comes to moving to Florida. So that's you. Reach out to us, hit that number below, and let's get into the next one. All right, and the last pro is a little bit of a weak one, but hear me out. So Florida is not the cheap place it used to be, obviously. But there are a lot of cool places where you can still, unlike a lot of major cities where like if you go an hour outside the city, especially on the West Coast, you're not gonna afford anything. It's still gonna be unattainable. The one thing I'll say here in Orlando, if you're able to position yourself in a good spot when it comes to traffic and really focus on it, you can find homes that are affordable. Now, yes, purchasing homes are expensive. I'm not gonna lie, it is what it is. We'll talk about that later on in this video. But when it comes to even renting, like there are some renting that are cheaper than mortgages. They're there. They're trying to rise, but rents have definitely stabilized a little bit here in Orlando. Is you can get a pool and stuff like that for under $2,500 a month. I've even seen $2,000 a month or less for homes with a pool. And that's only in Davenport heading to Horizon West. So that whole 27 stretch heading towards Claremont. So they exist. And the big thing is if you're able to go a little bit outside of where you work, I promise you that like, there are opportunities still available. Is it what it used to be 10 years ago? No, but those opportunities do exist. But what I tell people is you have to really be smart about where you spend your money because you can easily come to Orlando and spend all of it. So you have to be careful when it comes to living here because if you don't have that right plan, it's tough. But I can tell you those opportunities do exist. This is really only a pro if you're coming from one of those areas. If you're one of the people coming from New York City, Atlanta, I've had some Kansas City, LA, San Diego, Phoenix. I've had a lot of those major metros where the average price is a lot higher than here. Because the average price in Orlando Central might be $420,000. You can find homes cheaper, even brand new homes cheaper than $420,000. You just might have to drive a little bit outside the main area. So it is what it is, but those opportunities do exist. And that's one thing I do still like about Orlando, but it is fading quick. All right, now we're gonna get into the cons real quick. So the first con we're gonna talk about is traffic. It is awful. Oh my God. It's awful. Traffic's awful here. I despise it. I try and avoid all times. And of course, every time I try and avoid the traffic, it's the time that I have to go, unfortunately. So traffic is awful. I despise it. The 4 is awful. I live in Davenport, and if you have to go anywhere past Disney, it's awful. It's terrible. I really wish we may have relocated a little bit to a better area. Why? Because I didn't have someone like me and my team to help you when it comes to relocating here. But I can tell you, I'm not a huge fan of it. That traffic is awful. And the best part is, you're gonna love this. Even when it's not congested, people in Florida drive like crazy because you have people from all these different states coming here. You have people from, and not just living here, like I'm talking about like the ones that are just seasonal snowbirds. And then you also have other countries, the United States, they all come here and people drive like crazy. I've seen some of the craziest stuff happen on the roads here in Orlando, surprisingly more than I've ever had in California. So keep in mind, not only do you have congestion, you have crazy drivers. So if you don't like that, it's very important you find a good location. Now, we're gonna roll into the next one. And the second one is also weather, which is the con. Yes, I know I talked about it being a pro, but here's the con. If you don't like rain, it probably isn't the place for you, right? You don't like humidity, not gonna be the place for you majority of the year. Even during the winter, we still have some level of humidity. Another downfall, hurricanes. Keep in mind, I have people that move here, especially if they've never experienced hurricanes, have some level of prep to your home. You could get a home generator, you can save up mentally, you can make sure you buy a home that has solar, maybe a backup generator. You have to be prepared for these hurricanes. I even tell all my clients once they move here, you need to have a backup plan too. It's just how I am. I don't know if it's me in the military, I grew up in like a small town, it's just how my life is. We were always kind of prepared. You can get emergency food that lasts like years and years and years. Have backup plans. Is Orlando more protected than a lot of other places in Florida? Absolutely. Absolutely, it is. I'm not gonna lie to you. But at the same time, you have to have a backup plan. If a big one comes and you need to evacuate, you need to have a backup plan. Where are you gonna go? How's it gonna work? Do you have the money set aside just in case that happens? It's Florida, it's crazy. This place is nuts. Have a backup plan, make sure you have that money set aside. But it is a con. Those hurricanes can come and will come, and it will cause some stress to you and your family. All right, the third one is the crowds. This place is freaking crowded. I mean, I don't know. Look, the one thing I'll tell you is we set up our life here in Orlando to be a little bit more flexible, right? Like we're going to the parks and places when people are usually having to work and go to school. That's why I chose that life, because I can avoid some of those crowds. Even then, it gets very, very crowded. If it gets any point, like the big holiday in this last year that stuck up to me was Thanksgiving. Holy cow. Like I didn't even want to leave my house. I left my house one day to go to the store with the boys, and I'm like, nope. I'm going back home. I'm gonna go curl into a ball and not leave anymore. The crowds were insane. The traffic was insane. So it's not always the same every year. Some holidays end up being weirdly more than others, but I can tell you, if you're not a huge crowd person, there are certain locations around Orlando where you can avoid those yearly sensational crowds. Where I live is not that place because I was dumb and I did not pick the right place. But there are places around Orlando where you can protect yourself. So if you're not like, I don't feel like dealing with people today, you can avoid most people. So keep that in mind when it comes to relocating here. But yeah, those crowds are awful. All right, the fifth con, I honestly wasn't sure what to put here. And then it hit me. Why? Because it's that time of year right now. And that's pollen. So you my fellow allergy sufferers, hello, welcome. I have a problem. It's called allergies. And if you have allergies, guess what? What happens is every year in Florida, when spring comes, which is like roughly right now at the time of March here, February into March, you wake up and all of a sudden you have like this blanket of dust over your car. It's not dust, it's pollen. It's great. It's awesome. So be prepared to live off Claritin when you come here, or any other allergy meds of your choice. It gets bad. I've sinus rinses, all that kind of stuff. I'll be honest with you, I will take the summer, the dead heat of summer, over pollen season, because that's just how much it kicks my butt. I mean, all of a sudden you'll wake up one day and like for that whole month or so, you're like, why am I so tired? Why do I want to sleep all the time? It's because the hay fever hits me and it's just awful. So keep in mind, it's a huge thing. If you don't forget, there are solutions. You can take like local honey. It's a great tip my doctor's given me. Like talk to your doctor. But there are cool things that you can do around here that can help mitigate that pollen issue. And it's not forever. It's just for the beginning of spring and stuff like that. But man, it hits hardcore. Is it the end of the world? No. But it's definitely pretty crazy when you wake up and you just have pollen everywhere. See, this place gets some serious pollen. Anyways, we're gonna get into the cost of living. First thing I'm gonna talk about utilities, electricity. So electricity, obviously you're in Florida, so your AC is running 95% of the year. Welcome. So my electrical cost really fluctuates throughout the year. So for about 2,300 square foot home, single level, our electric bill ranges throughout the year from $133 being the lowest. Yeah, that's true. It was crazy. I got the bill and I'm like, is this wrong? What happened? All the way up to like roughly around 250 bucks-ish. Obviously, costs go up every year, like with everything, so that's a very approximate number there. I'm trying to remember, that was my most expensive bill I think I had in the last year, because it was freaking hot last summer. And that's usually roughly what your electric bill will be, so be prepared for that. There are some payment plans and some things that you could knock that down a little bit. I haven't really jumped into them too heavily, but keep that in mind. That's gonna be a big cost for you. If you can get into a newer home, those costs are definitely gonna be better compared to an older home that really isn't holding up its weight anymore with insulation and things like that. Also, obviously, we have no solar at this current time, so that will affect your budget as well. Water bill ranges, I still don't know why. So initially moving into this house, we had our water bill was like 100 bucks. I didn't include that as the lowest bill because roughly our water bill has now ranged between $120 and $155. A majority of that is sewer cost. Like, it's insane. Now, we live in Davenport, so keep that in mind. Your water districts are gonna be a little bit different, same electricity, a little bit different, but for the most part, they're gonna be pretty the same. Now, if you get a home with well and septic, obviously that's not something you're gonna be worried about. You're gonna be worried about just having a septic clean out every now and then and maybe some well costs. So not too much of an issue, but yeah, that water cost really hits you. Oh, keep in mind with that water, if you are renting, obviously if you're owning, you can just deal with the HOA if you live in an HOA. If you don't live in an HOA, forget about it. A lot of landlords are gonna require you to use the water system on your home. And most new communities I run into have a separate water meter. So you have a water meter for the house, you have a water meter for the sprinkler system. And like, at least in Davenport, Haines City area, 1 day a week is your water day. And that's when you're required to run the water. I usually run it for about 25 minutes or so. Recommendations could be like 30, 35 minutes. I do it for 25. A lot of areas you have 1 day a week you're allowed to water. That cost is about $35 of that bill that I talked about. So it's a decent amount. It's not, the main cost is the sewer. So keep that in mind. If you have a home with septic, you're not gonna have that sewer cost, but that's the big cost that we run into when it comes to water bill. Internet, so right now we have Spectrum. T-Mobile interests me. I know there's a lot of options for internet. We had an initial startup deal. We pay like 75 bucks a month for internet right now, and I pay for good internet because obviously I work from home a lot, talking to you guys on Zooms and stuff like that. That's what we pay, and our trash bill is about 23 bucks a month is what we pay for Davenport. Again, that fluctuates for every area. Groceries, it's kind of subjective. I tell people it's pretty much about the same everywhere. There's certain things that might be more expensive here, or like fruits that aren't native here, like avocados, things like that, but we can find deals from time to time on those items. What's weird is because Florida just doesn't grow as much stuff anymore, even citrus goes bad. Even citrus has been like shelled off to like other, like Mexico and stuff like that, is I feel like produce goes bad really fast here. It's also the weather and the humidity, even inside your home. So keep in mind that doesn't help the produce at all anyways. What we've really enjoyed doing is finding deals for like flash frozen fruit and veggies, and I like using that. My wife loves fresh stuff. I do too when we're making certain dishes. I do love to cook. But that's one of the things when it comes to groceries. I tell people you're not really gonna save that much. We easily spend over 400 bucks a month on groceries, but I also have a family of 5 and I got 3 boys, so they're gonna eat me on a house and home. So we probably spend more closer to 500 a month, if I'm being honest with you, on groceries, because I feel like I just can never get enough, and meat costs are expensive. So I really don't see meat deals like I have on the West Coast, so keep that in mind when it comes to Florida. Gas, if you go to Costco, BJ's, cheapest gas I've seen is like $3.10 a gallon at the time of this. Obviously it's gas, it fluctuates all the time. I've seen gas all the way up to like $3.40, $3.50. In certain areas. So that's like the range for gas. Most are like $3.39 right now. We have BJ's right down the street. Costco's, Sam's Clubs are everywhere. So you can definitely get gas that's cheaper. And what's cool about BJ's, even $3.10 a gallon, if you have their credit card, you can even get like $3 a gallon for gas if you use that to purchase. Toll roads are a big issue. This is the last thing we talked about before switching to the computer here. Toll roads scare a lot of people who come from areas that aren't used to toll roads. I call it, like a good friend of mine here in Orlando, I call it a convenience tax. So toll roads are a convenience. Most of the time, round trip on any toll road, you're gonna be spending a couple bucks. And keep in mind, sometimes that shaves off like 30 minutes of drive time. It's crazy. Other times, you might only save like 2 minutes. So always gauge it on like a navigation app before traveling around to see if it's worth it or not. But most of the time, it is convenient. Now keep in mind, I even told people, like I took a trip in Tennessee not too long ago to visit my dad in Tennessee, and going all the 429 all the way from here, on the 4, all the way as north as it goes, which is like just south of Gainesville or whatever, only cost me like $5. So that's a long way to drive on a toll road. It only costs $5, all right? So I know a lot of people are struggling when it comes to moving. It's already expensive as it is. Toll roads aren't the end of the world, but if you are gonna have to drive them every day for work, that's when I really say, hey, maybe you need to reconsider where you're looking at to live, because they will add up if you're having to take them every day. If you don't have to take them every day, it's a convenience. You take them when you need to, you avoid them when you don't, so and so forth. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna head to the computer. I have the screen pulled up, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna look over a few different areas that are some of the most popular areas that people look at when it comes to relocating to Orlando. How do I know this? Because they reach out to me. These are always some of the first cities that we discuss and look at when we're coming to their search. So first one's up to Winter Garden. Winter Garden is one of the most popular areas in Orlando for those who have a higher budget, not like a crazy high budget, but definitely have a higher budget when it comes to looking at homes. It is not the cheapest area on this list that we're going to discuss today, but Winter Garden is a great community, has amazing schools, and you can see why it's such a good location. Obviously, being well located just south of Lake Apopka, you have easy access to a lot of places. So as you can see, I also pulled up the traffic map as we go through each one of these areas. And while Winter Garden does have some congestion in certain parts as people head towards the city for work, for the most part, especially if you're taking the 429 south, you can get out of Winter Garden very easily in the morning. This is why it's such a good thing. The time I'm recording this section, it is 7:21 in the morning. So give you a good idea, and it is a Wednesday. So good scope of view for those of you who are going to work. This is gonna be traveling to work time. So pretty cool. We get to look at this traffic map and go through things. So Winter Garden is awesome. What I did is I went ahead and we're gonna look at the cost of homes that are like the cheapest homes to purchase and some of the most expensive. I'm gonna talk about it here. So we have the list pulled up. Look on the left side of the screen, we're gonna go to the lowest, and alrighty, so looking at it, you can see that you can start pretty low on the end. 1,000 square feet, 3 bed, 2 bath. Let's see. Yeah, this is definitely gonna be the cheapest house you're gonna find in Winter Garden. It looks like I see some mold in the walls, yep, on the outside, cool, yep, awesome. So that's obviously the lower end of the spectrum. Let's head up a little bit. 370 is, I think, a more reasonable entry into the area without having any crazy issues. Yeah, so if you're looking for a single family home, to give you a scope, 1,000 square feet, 3 bed, 2.5 bath, that's $370,000. And this is a really nice one. Looks like they've redone it. It might be a flip, but great looking home, entry level price, $370,000. So that's what you can expect here, and that is on the north end of Winter Garden. Now, don't forget, Winter Garden also has all the way up. You can go all the way, every single one of the cities can go all the way to like $1.5 million homes. But I'm not gonna worry about that right now. So I've had several clients who have come out, and we are around about 500 to 550. Let's scroll too far here. All right, so
This is about what you can expect at 554. Sometimes you can get a better deal than this and knock them down a little bit. This is just over 2,000 square feet, 3 beds, 2.5 baths. And this is a typical home you can expect at the mid-tier price range in Winter Garden. Like I said, you can absolutely get smaller than this. You do not have to go this much, but generally, if you're looking for one of the nicest not nicest communities, but one of like the average homes in Winter Garden, this is between, I'd say, 554 to 650 is about the range you're gonna be looking at. It's, like I said, it's not the cheapest one on the list, and we're gonna cover ones here in a little bit. Winter Garden is a very big one, and one that definitely a lot of people like to look at. You can see the backyard here in this picture. So, all right, let's switch to our next city. So now we're gonna be talking about Davenport, and Davenport is in the northeast end of Polk County, which is one of the fastest growing counties in the entire country. We have a lot of people moving to this county. Now, I live in Polk County, I love Polk County and Davenport, so I know this very, very well. But there are definitely some drawbacks and pros when it comes to living in Davenport. When you look at the greater Orlando area, one of the more affordable areas when it comes to per square footage on a home. So whether you're buying new construction, resale, you tend to get more home for what you'd expect, especially in like a Winter Garden, Dr. Phillips, even certain parts of Kissimmee. You can tend to find a good deal in Davenport. Communities are great, I love the people. The downfall is Davenport also has a lot of short-term rentals. So if you're looking to live here, the pastor for church, like he lives in a community, and his neighbors can be different every other day because they have, you know, they're all short-term rentals. That's what the community is dedicated towards. So you really want to be mindful when living there, but a lot of the new construction communities don't really allow short-term rentals. So that's a plus that you're dealing with. But if you want a home with a pool, you're probably gonna be one of those older communities. Now, obviously looking at traffic here, you can see it's starting to get worse as we continue recording this video. Leaving Davenport, good luck. I mean, that the downfall is if you're having to travel into the city for work. I mean, whether you're taking the 17, whether you're taking the 4, it is the darkest shade of red I think this map can show for traffic. As you can see, Champions Gate, this is the Disney area. Once you get past the 429, you're fine until you get to Disney again. And then you're fine after that. But unfortunately, these two areas are always like this. Always, always, always during the week. It's just gonna be this hard traffic unless you're like leaving at a specific time, like mid-morning. It just is what it is. 17, a lot of times is really backed up as well. It's a really common road that people take trying to get into Kissimmee, and you can't really avoid it. But without further ado, let's get into this. All right, so like I said before, we're gonna start with the lowest. As you can see here, you have a lot of lower ends, like manufactured homes, stuff like that. We're not worried about that. This is your typical, oh, I know exactly where this is. So you're not too far from the elementary and middle schools here in Davenport on the south end when this home right here. Cool fun fact, on North Boulevard West on this road, there is a new Tom Phillips Community Center that was built a couple years ago. So they have all kinds of events and stuff like that there, which is pretty cool. You're not far from Davenport Town Hall with a home like this. So this is a good entry, like $274,000. As you can see, yeah, the outside can be pressure washed, but the inside is going to be decent. I know I've looked at this home before, other clients come into the area. So look, it's a good home, absolutely. But this is a good example of the lower end. Like if you don't want a pool and you don't want HOAs, guess what? This home has both. Downfall is you're gonna probably be in well and septic. Now on this road, they have added public water, but you're gonna have to pay to attach your home to that, unfortunately. But good backyard, decent home. This is a good example of a home on the lower end of the price range in Davenport. Now let's flip it around. Obviously, like any community, you have your $1 million homes. Not as much as other areas though, which is pretty cool. What we're gonna do is we're gonna head down to a couple different areas because this one actually has a little bit more range. So let's say you wanna jump to 430. Or even let's say, well, what's funny is around this range, you can actually get some new construction homes. So keep that in mind. A lot of the new construction communities around here are gonna be around this price range. But at 424, you start to get 2 stories, a lot more living space than that previous one. And like I said before, some of the new constructions are around this range. 2 stories are gonna be more closer to 450, depending on which one you're looking at. But you can get single story under 400 for sure in Davenport. So that's the cool thing about it, is you actually have that flexibility of range. But you're not gonna get much backyard. A lot of these newer construction home communities, especially this one, which this community is actually getting close to finishing. Yeah, it is. It's getting close to finishing right now. I was in the community the other day, and they're actually already voting for the HOA. But So as you can see here, this is a good example of one of the newer homes in that community. A lot of these new construction community homes, especially in Davenport, they're just so basic. I mean, you definitely are gonna have to put your own touch onto these homes. They are very, very basic fixtures and everything. So definitely gonna have to put your own touch onto these. But for the most part, basic home, 424. Like I said, you don't have to go crazy high in Davenport. You can, but there's really no need to. I mean, you can stay under 450 for sure to even have a 2-story, and you can stay under 400 for sure to get a single story. So that's the one cool thing about Davenport is that flexibility of range. Food for thought, there is nothing wrong with living on the south end of Davenport, but I will say this 27 can get crazy. If you're living on the north end of Davenport, which is this small tip right here before we start getting closer to Four Corners and towards the Horizon West up here, this area is a lot calmer than the south end of Davenport. It's just a lot more chaos. Also, don't forget when work happens, everyone from Haines City is also trying to go north to get to the highways. So when you live on this north end, it's just a little bit calmer. Just food for thought, things we noticed since moving to Davenport that I think people would find very, very helpful. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna give you a good range of what rent costs. So I'll be fully honest. Well, I help people purchase and sell real estate with me and my team here in the Orlando area. You know what? Renting can sometimes be beneficial, and I'll be honest with you, there are some awesome rental deals in Davenport. So look at, for $17.30 a month, 3-bed, 2-bath. Not gonna have a pool, very basics, only 3-bed, 2-bathroom. But I mean, you're not gonna get a mortgage for this right now. I mean, things might change. I mean, I like to put nails in my wall, so renting's not for me. But as you can see, Davenport also has a good range of rent. Another great community. It's in that same community that new construction does at 430. So that's really cool about that. And you can see rents gradually purchased. The one thing I wanted to point out is some people, they want a pool. Not everyone cares. Let's say you want a private pool. Rent starts at $19.50 a month, guys. $19.50 a month, and you can get a pool. So keep in mind, Davenport also is gonna have the most affordable rents. The other cities are not gonna have this much flexibility when it comes to areas. The downfall is this traffic. So, all right, without further ado, let's head to the next city.
Okay, so now we're looking at Clermont, Florida as the third city on this list. So Clermont, obviously, if you go back 10, 15 years ago, it was a lot smaller than it is today. Now it's become a very, very popular spot, especially for locals who are living in Orlando. So Clermont, as you can see, we had Winter Garden. We're heading more west now. Clermont is out here. You have Mineola, Groveland. I would consider these also extensions of Clermont. Groveland is where Groveland and Mascotte is where a lot of new construction is happening as well, which I would say would compete with Davenport when it comes to affordability. Clermont itself tends to be a little more expensive, I've noticed, in a lot of other areas, but that's also if you're just trying to stay within city limits. Obviously, there are areas outside of this. Now, Clermont is one of those cities where, compared to Davenport, where you have craziness, traffic, Airbnbs, all that stuff going on, in Clermont, it tends to be a lot calmer than Davenport. Also, a cool fact, I did a video on this, I'll try and link above, where Clermont actually has some hills to it. So there are certain parts around Clermont that will actually have some more elevation than you would expect in other areas. It's not drastic, it's not like it's crazy, but it's cool to see that slight change of pace compared to a lot of other areas in Florida. So that's one cool thing I love about Clermont. So Clermont, like I said, it's not the most affordable city. It's gotten expensive, and it is what it is. You can easily find homes that are more affordable. The reason I say it tends to be more expensive is when people start to get into like slightly bigger homes, I would say Davenport still beats it per square foot. But you can, like I said, any one of these cities, like you can find opportunities. That's not what I'm saying. But as you can see here, this is a good example of an entry-level home in Clermont, green and yellow. That's great. I don't know if I'm a fan of that. I would be painting. But this is like a basic level, entry-level home. Obviously in Clermont, very quickly, you can start getting up into the 400s, mid 400s. That's why I say, like, you don't last very long under 400,000 in Clermont when you're in the central portion of Clermont. Very quickly, especially when you get over 1,500 square feet, it can easily start adding up to over 400,000 very quickly. But the homes are nice, the communities are nice. I mean, I love Clermont. They just got a Costco last year. Like, everything you would expect you would need in Clermont is there, or it's on its way. That's one cool thing about Clermont. It's expanding, but it's not as crazy as Davenport. Now let's head here. Let's do a little bit of rent real quick. So coming over to rent. So you have condos that start at $13.50. and single family at 4 bedrooms that go all the way to 2,700. So like a lot of areas, rent sometimes tends to be a little bit cheaper than buying at the time of recording this video, which is April of 2024. Things change, they always fluctuate. Right now, it just tends to be the case. But just so you know, your rent is not gonna be the cheapest. Maybe it could be in other areas. Condos, $1,350, and you range all the way up to 2,700. Now, obviously you can go higher than that. You know, if you really wanna get crazy, there's more expensive than that. But that's roughly what you're expecting. 4 bedrooms are high 2000s. That's the basics of it when it comes to Clermont. It's not the most affordable city. It's not the worst. When it comes to that, it's still a lot better than Winter Garden by far. But that's the basics of Clermont. It's a great city. It's a growing city. It's definitely one of my more favorite areas that I get to look at. It's actually one of the more popular videos on my channel. Like I said, I linked that up above. Go ahead and click it. Now, let's head into the next one. We're looking at Winter Park, Florida. So Winter Park tends to be one of the more popular areas that people bring up to me and the team when they're relocating here, when it comes to like maybe they have kids going to college nearby because the college is right over here, or maybe they work directly in the city and they're trying to not have to drive as much during most of their work week. A lot of different variations, or maybe they just love living near their city. To be honest with you, most people who reach out to me probably don't really care about the city and they don't want to be near it. They like being on the outskirts and just going there when they want to on weekends or if they're doing certain things. I will tell you, one of the things that can be a con with Winter Park is if you don't like being close to the center of downtown, maybe this isn't for you. Does Winter Park necessarily feel like the city? No. No, unlike a lot of other cities that I've lived in, you know, especially being across the Marine Corps, a lot of different cities in California, Miami, Tampa, it doesn't really feel like a city so much. Orlando doesn't have too much high rises compared to a lot of other cities. It's more sprawled out. So personally, I don't feel like you really feel like you're in the city, but you definitely have less land per home than certain other areas like Clermont or Davenport, where we can get a little bit more of a backyard suburban feel. Winter Park has that. But the one thing I'll notice, and you'll see in a little bit, is it's definitely a lot more expensive than these other areas we talked about. Again, you can find opportunities, starts to vary when it comes to affordability. But Winter Park, for a lot of people, they love the location. A lot of people look at Winter Park and it's close to downtown, things like that. So that's actually a really big plus for them. I get it, I do, really, really do. Now, here's Winter Park. This is where the airport would be. It's centrally located. Coming over to the housing, obviously, 280,000, but you're starting at 1,100 square feet. So per square foot, you're paying more than even say Winter Garden, depending on what kind of neighborhood you're looking to and the style of home. 1-car garage, small home, but it's centrally located. So maybe it is for you. You know, this home on the top was built in '93. It's not like it's some crazy old home. Certain other homes in Winter Park, you can definitely find older ones for sure. I will tell you, it doesn't feel like you're in the city, so don't think that I'm just blowing out of proportion. I am a little bit. You know, it really depends. But it's, like I said, it's gonna be a little bit busier than you would expect in a lot of other areas. For the location, a lot of people really love it. Obviously, you can see prices start to jump pretty quick. You don't have many homes that are under 400,000. And then boom, you're over 400,000. So obviously there's some new construction going on near there for townhomes. Every one of these cities has new construction. It's a very, very popular thing. At the end of this, we'll show some quick new construction, just to give you an example of what's going on in the area. But aside from that, you know, even like this home was probably built, looks like it's an older home, 1,570 square feet, you're already at 437,000. Like you jump very quick in price in Winter Park is the biggest downfall. Now, if you can afford up to 500,000, hey, Winter Park can easily be on your realm. If you can't, you have some smaller options. I know a lot of people moving out here that have family and kids. Like I got a family of 5. You just don't have the space to be doing this. I can't be doing an 1,100 square foot house. I did that with like a 900 square foot condo in California, and I wanted to pull all my hair out. The fact that I still have hair amazes me after living in that situation. So Winter Park gets expensive very, very quick. But again, you have the budget. So a lot of people really, really do love the area. They do. They really love what it looks like. Like $550, you got a pool. They can love the location. It's awesome. Now, when it comes to rent, man, this is just gonna be what you see listed. I see it fluctuate so much. I mean, you got 1,100-ish, and very quickly you start to go to 1,500 for condos. The one thing I will say about Winter Park, it has a lot of condos and apartments. Unlike some other cities that have maybe a couple condos and they go straight single family at 2,000 plus a month, Winter Park has a lot more condos, townhomes, things, and apartments. So you got a lot more flex when it comes to apartments, which is also why a lot of people tend to rent here when they first move to Orlando. Now, Winter Park has one of those things where you have so much availability. If you're looking to rent, maybe this could be a place for you. But again, I really encourage everyone to travel here to see if Winter Park is a place for you because you are so close to the city. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, let's head into the next one. On Kissimmee, Florida. So obviously Kissimmee, if you've ever traveled for vacation here to Orlando, Kissimmee's probably one of the places you have looked at for Airbnbs or things like that. There are a ton of them. So again, pro, con, it's tourism central. So keep in mind, if you're living in Kissimmee, that is something you're dealing with, absolutely. Now, as you can see, this is just the city limits of Kissimmee. People will get thrown off when it comes to looking for homes or apartments in Kissimmee, because they have areas over towards Lake Benevicia that are still Kissimmee. They have places down towards Point Siena that are still Kissimmee. So you really need to make sure you pull up the map when you get your address of where the place is, because it really will throw you off. But Kissimmee, obviously centrally located to the airport. Biggest con I hear from people is the fact that it gets so touristy in Kissimmee. So during peak seasons, peak times, congestion's really bad. You might live in a place that who knows if your neighbors are gonna stay the same. Obviously, when you're renting long-term, you may or may not run into that issue, depending if you're in an apartment, condo, things like that. But keep in mind, that is a thing with Kissimmee. But if you're looking to travel to Disney and you're not trying to deal with too much junk when it comes to traffic, Kissimmee could be the place for you, right? It could be the place for you to live when it comes to going to Disney World, so that's awesome. Now, one of the most sought after areas in Kissimmee is Hunters Creek. A lot of people ask about Hunters Creek. It's one of the nicer areas when it comes to the area of Kissimmee, and it definitely commands that price tag for sure. I'm not gonna go through all the rents when it comes to this area. You can just look at the map. I mean, you got condos at 500, and then you got all the way up probably to like, yeah, 13,000 a month. One can dream, right? So like 5,000 a month homes. So Kissimmee, you don't have to go through the rents. There are so many wide ranges of rent options. And you know what's funny when it comes to purchasing, when you look at homes, I love how these are supposed to be homes and they're not. You guys wonder what I do for a living when it comes to searching for homes for you? This is it, is looking at listings and being like, oh, that's not a home at all. That's a condo. Great, they put it in wrong. So obviously you can start off at like some dinky little, probably mobile home, start off super, super small. But then you can go all the way up to the multi-millions. You have such a wide range of homes that you can get. And that's one of the biggest things that attract people to it. Generally, your average is still around the 420,000 mark. Now that's taking into account the really expensive homes, is taking into account the cheapest ones. But the biggest thing I can leave with you with Kissimmee is it has one of the widest ranges of price points if you're flexible. If you're not flexible, you might run into some issues. If you're like, Cameron, I need a house with a pool that's exactly this square footage minimum at this price, then you might run into some issues. If you have some flexibility with what you're looking for, Kissimmee can be the place. And then Hunters Creek varies. I mean, you got high 700s, 600s, but most of them are gonna be around low 400s and plus when it comes to living in Hunters Creek. People love Hunters Creek. It has all the amenities close by. You're not far from Disney World if you wanna drive, but it tends to be a little bit less short-term rentals. Hunters Creek is nice. They put it in wrong. So obviously you can start off at like some dinky little, probably mobile home, and you start off super, super small. But then you can go all the way up to the multi-millions. Kissimmee, the biggest thing I can leave you with when it comes to Kissimmee is you have such a wide range of homes that you can get in Kissimmee. And that's one of the biggest things that attract people to it. Generally, your average is still around the 420,000 mark. Now that's taking into account the really expensive homes, is taking into account the cheapest ones. But the biggest thing I can leave with you with Kissimmee is it has one of the widest ranges of price points if you're flexible. If you're not flexible, you might run into some issues. If you're like, Cameron, I need a house with a pool that's exactly this square footage minimum at this price, then you might run into some issues. If you have some flexibility with what you're looking for, Kissimmee can be the place. And then Hunters Creek varies. I mean, you got high 700s, 600s, but most of them are gonna be around low 400s and plus when it comes to living in Hunters Creek. People love Hunters Creek. It has all the amenities close by. You're not far from Disney World if you wanna drive, but it tends to be a little bit less short-term rentals. It's nice. Definitely understand why people love it so much. So it's one thing to look at when it comes to moving to the area. Now, real quick, I'm gonna hop over. We're gonna look at some of the new construction options. We're gonna talk about what to look for in new constructions and dive into that right now. But we're gonna talk briefly about new construction in Florida. So the first thing you're gonna see here is a site that you all have access to search for new construction in the area. So it's always down in the description of the video. You have access to it. It's an awesome resource that I definitely love to give to all of you. Now, but you don't have to use it. You can use any one of your sites. The issue when it comes to new construction is like this source isn't necessarily the MLS. It's a separate tool that I pay for that allows us to have access to them, because not all new construction communities will post to the MLS. Some of them don't, and they just post randomly. But this site curates those and pulls them in and stuff like that. So when it comes to new construction, you have a lot of options in the Orlando area. When you look up the communities, we're gonna pull up the map real quick. As you can see, you got a lot. I mean, these are all new. Some of these are gonna be finishing out. Some of them are brand new. A lot of times what I'm seeing right now in new construction is when it comes to buying new construction compared to resale, it can be a better deal. If you don't like HOAs and CDDs for that extra monthly cost and rules, not for you. All new constructions in the area do that now. It's like a basic model where you have HOAs, you might have CDDs, which is an extra cost per year, and you might have one little park and a little pool in the community, and that's it. I'm not seeing many that have pool options added on to the homes. Not that, but you can always check with their rules and see if you can add your own pool onto the house later. This is basically what you're looking at. And really, when it comes to new construction, a lot of people, I tell you to be cautious, right? A lot of these new construction homes, when you go in by yourself, unrepresented here in Florida, that's it. Once you walk through those doors at a new construction, you cannot get your own representation with an agent, so something to keep in mind of, something that caught us off guard doing new construction here in Florida. So you really have to be prepared when it comes to going into that. That being said, remember, if the builder represents themselves, they don't represent you. They can give you all the sweet nothings, but I'm a type of person, I don't trust anyone. So make sure you do that. If you are looking for a representation, me and my team are here to help you with that. We're very dedicated. I have done my own personal new construction inside a community and outside, and I can tell you, we're here to walk you through that process and work you through it, no matter how long it takes when it comes to building. We even have a client right now who reached out to us, and they're building outside a community. We're gonna help them find a lot, and the builders I have connections to here in Orlando, so it's awesome. Now, a lot of builders have great incentives where you either pay your closing costs, some will pay closing costs, and they'll buy your rate down for 2 years or 1 year. It varies. Some of those programs disappear, some of them come back. They always try and tell you they're gonna disappear. A lot of builders are negotiating right now because they're trying to sell their homes. So compared to resale, you can probably short-term save a little bit of money going with a new construction. Long-term, again, more expensive mortgage, HOA costs, things like that. It might not save you the money that you think, but you have a lot of opportunity when it comes to saving money here in Orlando. So look, this is a good example of what you'll see on the website when you look through stuff. Obviously, this is one of the basic homes, Parkside Trails. This is a nice community. So, man, do they have any pictures of the homes here? Here you go. So as you can see, this is like a basic, probably more upscale new construction. But keep in mind, when you look at like the pictures they give you compared to the ones that your home builds, sometimes they can be different. So be mindful of that. But this is basic new construction home. So this one's a little more upscale. This is what I would consider a luxury quality here for new builds in the area. So as you can see, they have a lot more detail. I'm gonna give you a good example. So we're gonna go down here. All right, this is what I'm gonna consider a basic new construction build for the area. This one's in Point Siena. Looks like they have an indoor pool. It's great. This one has a golf club. So this one's gonna be a little more upscale too. Now they don't have an interior picture. But as you can see, this is roughly the prices go. 300,000 for this one, 300,000. A lot of these homes are gonna be lower because they're in Point Siena, but this is basic. You get a golf course, you get a pool. This is what you consider, but 1,300 square feet, they're not that big. But the basic thing in here in Orlando is you got a basic home. There's nothing really fancy about it. If you want anything that's over 400,000, you might get a little bit more detail, but the reality is if you're trying to stay under 400,000 for a new construction, you're not gonna get much detail. You're gonna be a pretty basic home, so keep in mind with that. And then a lot of the better deals, there are some for sure coming in through this area. A lot of them have finished building out, but I'm looking out my window right now. We have one across the street, Pulte Homes is building, and that is gonna be located, hold on, ooh, we're almost there. So Horizon Elementary School, right here, Hartford Terrace. They're not selling yet, they're getting ready. Surprised they haven't pulled up yet, but Hartford Terrace by Pulte Homes is one of the newer communities in Davenport, and it's starting from the high 300s. So this is where this community is gonna be. They're gonna have a sport park and a pool and playground, which I don't know what sport park means. We're gonna find out. They're still building the grounds.
So this right here is where this is going to be sold. This is going to be one of the newest new construction communities in Davenport. You can see where that's located. But again, that's one benefit that we bring is I'm staying on top of these communities before they even start advertising them. So you can be one of the first ones to get in there, hopefully get the best deal. So, and then a lot of people, if they're looking for some great new construction opportunities, like I said, up here near Mascotti, Groveland, you have a lot of new construction that tends to be a lot cheaper, but again, you're a little bit farther out there. So if your commute time is gonna be pretty long, take that into account. All right, guys, well, I had a pleasure going through this very deep dive when it comes to moving to Orlando. I've been meaning to do this video for a long time, and if you somehow stuck around to the end, hey, congratulations, it's a lot. But I tried to put a basic overview of every single point that I can think of when it comes to moving to Orlando. I hope you got value in this video. Again, if you're looking to relocate here, you need help buying a home and making those adjustments when it comes to making that perfect relocation plan, this number down below is who you can call, text, email. You're gonna get a hold of me. Again, thank you so much for enjoying this channel. It's viewers like you watching these videos is why I keep putting them out. Always feel free to let me know in the comments below any questions you have. But what's even better is give me a call, reach out. It's the fastest way to get stuff done. Look, even if you're renting, I get it. It's a little tough for us to help when it comes to rentals here in Florida. We don't really get compensated for it, but I always give everyone the time of day because I really do feel if you're coming to Florida, you're relocating here, we all want a better life, and working together is how we can build that community and build a better place for all of us. So I hope you got value in this video. Again, reach out and don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.